welcome to another episode of the Progress Podcast, where we share with young people that they do have a purpose and that progress is possible for you in your life. I'm really excited to be joined by Kade today. He's an expert on progress, and he's certainly made a lot of progress, especially in expanding your comfort zone. But I'll just give you a chance, Kade. Would you want to introduce yourself to us a little?
Yeah, first, thanks for having me. I always enjoy doing these podcasts, sharing my story and sharing some of the things I've learned. Most people know me as the guy that does random things to get out of his comfort zone. A lot of people know me for the guy who also dances in his car at stoplights, kind of makes a fool out of himself. And just over the last few years, I've been really trying to just break my comfort zone and do anything and everything to be uncomfortable, because I'm a big believer that no growth will ever happen inside the comfort zone. And so I've just tried to conquer my fears, conquer my discomforts and insecurities and whatnot, and just become the best version of myself.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, you've gained a lot of notoriety online and certainly created a name for yourself as somebody who's brave and courageous and willing to break down the borders that a lot of us live inside. What kind of started that journey for you? What inspired that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and something to add to, the brave and courageous is there's nothing really that special about me. Like, I'm just a normal person. Fears, discomforts, they affect me the same way as they affect other people. But just through facing them head on, I've gotten more comfortable with those feelings. And so going back to where it started, I feel like growing up, I always enjoyed doing things that I'd never done before, trying new foods, new sports, new activities, meeting new people. I've always had kind of an enjoyment in that world. But about almost 3 years ago, I was in a stage of life where I feel like I was doing a lot of good things, but I feel like I could be doing more. And just kind of going through a moment in life where I'm like, you know what, I need to make new goals. I want, this is what I want to achieve in life. What's holding me back? And when I thought about it, it was my desire for comfort, my fears, and all these things in my life that I was avoiding, because no one wants to be uncomfortable. I was avoiding those things, and that is what was kind of keeping me complacent. And I thought I knew my limits, but once I had that realization of oh my gosh, I'm living way too comfortable, I got to break out. That's when I really got to see my true limits and expand that comfort zone.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you're somebody who's hungry.
For sure.
You've got an ambition and a drive and a vision. What was one of those first things that you did to expand your comfort zone? Yeah,
that's a great question. So kind of what started it is I went to, do you know who the Iron Cowboy is?
Yeah.
So I went to a seminar by him, and for the listeners who don't know who he is, he did 100 Ironmans in 100 days. One of the most craziest human feats ever. Master of the comfort zone. And in this seminar, he asked the audience, when was the last time you intentionally made yourself uncomfortable? And when he asked that, I was like, I've never intentionally made myself uncomfortable. Why would I do that? And it's that's what I need to do. I need to intentionally make myself uncomfortable. And so that was kind of the tipping point for me, because I was going through this life change. And then when he said that, it was that's it. That's exactly what I need to do. So I went home and I created what's called the Uncomfortable 30, where I do one thing every day to get out of my comfort zone. Wrote down all my fears, all of anything that could possibly make me uncomfortable, and then I just did one of those things every day. And the first thing I did was I wore a crazy weird outfit to the gym. Pajamas, boots, a pink fluorescent shirt, a light up hat. I duct tape my wrists to the point where when I walk in, people
what?
Immediately double take. And the whole point of that was to just be uncomfortable. Recognize people are gonna look at me, but get over the fear of what other people think of me and just be me. And so when I was driving into the gym, my heart was racing. I remember walking in, people would double take, but what I learned is they look at me, but then they immediately just go back to what they're doing. And that was 3 years ago. I guarantee not a single person in that gym remembers me. I remember that day clearly, because I'm in my head. But by the end of it, it was okay, that was uncomfortable, but people don't really care as much as I thought they would. That wasn't near as bad. So that was what started it off, and I was this is exactly where I need to be. So it was fun.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon, that perspective shift. We are always concerned that we look weird and everybody's noticing us. And the reality is that that doesn't really happen. The first time that I heard you speak, you were missing a shoe. And I literally didn't notice the whole speech until after you posted something about it. Share more about that.
Yeah, so I love that. That was what, like a month ago.
Yeah.
I was speaking at this thing, and I just really am trying to make my life as uncomfortable as possible, because the more uncomfortable you get, the more comfortable it gets. Like, if you want an easy life, make it hard. If you want a hard life, make it easy. That was something I talked about. And so what I've realized is, like, I've done a lot of public speaking. I've done a lot of these types of podcasts, and I'm getting more comfortable with it. The more you can do hard things, the easier it becomes. And so that day I was like, this is interesting. I'm not that scared to go do public speaking tonight. And it was a cool moment, because like 3 years ago, public speaking was scary. It was terrifying. It's the number one most common fear that people have, is public speaking. But just the more that I've done it, just the easier it is. I wouldn't say like it's easy. It's just I now know how to navigate those feelings inside me, and it's like, okay, like it's not that uncomfortable. And so I was like, how can I make this more uncomfortable? And that was when I had the idea to be barefoot on one foot and then wear a shoe on the other one. And it's funny that you didn't notice, because like when I first started, like I was walking and my shoe was a little bit higher, so like I felt like I had a waddle to me. And you know, that's an example of the thing that's in my head is like, oh, everyone's noticing my waddle. The people in the front row, like I could see them like whispering and talking. But then after like a couple of minutes, I totally forgot that I had one shoe on.
Wow.
And yeah, like I would say the majority of the people didn't notice that I had one shoe on. And so, perfect example of people. Let's see, what's the quote? You wouldn't care how much. You wouldn't care how much what people. Oh, sorry. You wouldn't care what people think about you if you could know how seldom they actually do.
Yeah.
And so there's this thing called the spotlight effect, where you walk into a room and you think everyone's looking at you, when in reality everyone's thinking the same thing, that everyone's looking at them. And so you wouldn't care if you could know how seldom people actually do.
Yeah. I once heard the Iron Cowboy, after his 100 Ironman experience, it was day 101. And he woke up that morning and his body was ready to run an Ironman.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And his brain was ready for it.
It's crazy.
And it almost like made him sick not to do it.
Yeah.
And so he still had to do an insane amount of exercise and put himself through a lot of discomfort, because he had become comfortable in that zone of discomfort and growth.
Yeah.
Is that something you relate to at all? Have you become addicted to this discomfort?
I don't know if addicted, because like still, like when I wake up in the morning, like something that I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to run first thing in the morning. I wouldn't say I'm a morning person, and so it's like uncomfortable for me. I am addicted to the idea of like endless growth. We'll never truly achieve our perfect selves. Like, we are all imperfect, and it's impossible to become perfect in this life. But that makes it kind of fun, because that means there's always something that we can do. It doesn't matter what stage of life you're in. There's always something you can do to be better. And so I like the thought that I'm happy with who I am, but I could even be a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so I would say, like, I don't know if addiction is the right word for it, but I do enjoy that, but I still am human and am affected by discomfort. But yeah, kind of like that example of the Iron Cowboy. To do 100 Ironmans and then wake up the next day and be like, yeah, I want to do another one. That's just crazy. It just shows that you can train your body to be comfortable with discomfort.
Yeah, you really have done so much that most people probably would never experience, because they don't push themselves. I mean, the interactions you had doing the military training, the Marine stuff, giving to a homeless man and getting to know him. There's so many things, dancing in the car and just upping the ante every time and pushing the envelope. What would you say is actually one of the most personally challenging things that you've put yourself through? Yeah,
I get asked this question a lot, and it's very hard to pick one, because there's different types of discomfort, emotional, physical, mental, like financial. Like we all go through a lot of types of discomfort, so it's hard to compare like my like a military training to dancing in the car.
Yeah.
It's very different types of discomfort. But one that does stick out to me, that I always enjoy sharing, because this was never intended to be a challenge of mine. It kind of just happened. I'd already done my challenge for that day. I've done the uncomfortable 33 times now. So yeah, I've done like a lot of crazy challenges. I don't even remember what my challenge was for that day, because it was uncomfortable. I know it was, but compared to what I ended up doing, it was way more uncomfortable. I got asked out like on this date to go to yoga with this girl that I never met before. And I was and that alone is uncomfortable.
Dude, yoga always if I have gas, yoga is when it's gonna happen.
I can't say I've never had that happen, but that's funny. That would make it a lot more uncomfortable. So that alone is already uncomfortable. Meet a girl I've never done and go do something that I suck at. Like I'm not a flexible guy, and yoga's not my thing. So that was uncomfortable. And I was with my roommate, and he was like dressed up, and he's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm going to yoga." And I guess it wasn't like a date. She just like kind of invited me to come. And I'm like, "I'm sure you could come if you wanted to come." And he was like dressed up, and I'm like, "Dude, that'd actually be a great challenge if I like wore like a shirt and tie to yoga. Like we should do that someday." And my roommate, he likes to do a lot of my challenges with me. He's super supportive. When I said that, he's like, "Yeah, we should do that someday. Maybe like right now." And I'm like, "No, that's okay. Like I'm already uncomfortable enough going to meet this guy I've never met." And he's like, "That's the exact reason why you should do this." And he's just like, "You gotta live up to who you are." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And we kind of went back and forth for probably 15 minutes. And I was like, "You know what? You're right. Let's do it." I like literally drove, like I was in my yoga clothes.
Yeah.
And I went back home, changed into a shirt, tie, dress coat, and just went to yoga. And I remember like that, I was so out of my comfort zone with that one.
Yeah.
Because like not only was I in a room full of people in athletic clothes, shorts, shirtless, and then here I am in a full pants, shirt, tie, dress shoes. But there was this girl that invited me, and like when she sees me, she's like, "What are you doing?" Like, oh, it's so uncomfortable. And I remember like telling the front desk, like, "You can change over there," and it's like, "No, like I'm okay." She's like, "That's what you're wearing," and I'm like, "Yeah." And it's like 100-degree room, so like it wasn't just like the social discomfort, it was also like the physical discomfort of just sweating in my dress clothes. But what's cool is like the more uncomfortable it is, the more growth that happens. And so I remember laying there on the floor, like looking up at the ceiling and just being like, "Holy cow, I can't believe I just did this. Like, what can I not do?" And it was really cool to just like overcome that hurdle of fear, and just really give me that confidence of, you know, who cares? Like, I'm gonna just be me. And at the end of the day, like I'm weird, and so if that girl doesn't like that I did that, chances are we're probably not gonna work out, because that's not gonna be the last time I do something weird like that. And so, you know, it was a really cool experience, and definitely really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I love that. True colors right out the gate. There's this quote I love. It's become kind of cliche nowadays maybe, but it goes something like, "The warrior that sweats more in practice bleeds less in war." And that came to my mind as you were sharing about that experience laying down on the yoga mat looking at the ceiling. I'm curious if there's any experiences for you that caused a similar kind of discomfort, whether social, emotional, physical, that actually weren't your choice, and you felt better prepared for those because of pushing yourself all the time.
Yeah, it's something that the Iron Cowboy like ingrained in me is, the more the more out of your comfort zone you can get, the better you are prepared for the unexpected trials and problems of your life. And 100%, like that. I mean, we can look at like today's age and like the age of hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, and look at the discomforts that they were facing compared to the discomforts that we face now, and it's like not even comparable. Like the stuff that they had to go through, like to literally fight for your food every day to like injuries, sicknesses, like weather. Like right now we're chilling in a temperature controlled room, you know, we're full stomachs. We have transportation, we have so much comforts, and then like the smallest discomfort in our lives, like traffic, when we're literally driving a motorized car like anywhere in the world, just drives us like crazy. And so like that's just an example of like the more comfortable you are, the easier small things can affect you. And so kind of to go to your question, 100%, everyone has problems in life. Like every viewer listening right now is going through something. I'm going through something, you're going through something. It's inevitable, it's part of this life. And 100% when I do go through these things, it's like, this is uncomfortable, but this is what I've trained for. I would say that's one of the biggest reasons why I do what I do, is to be ready for those moments. I'm like, the most recent one, I think last time you saw me, I was in a sling.
Yeah.
I just tore a ligament in my shoulder. I just got out of it last week. And when that happened, it's like, dang, like I'm making such great progress with this, like, why does this have to happen? Like, you know, I could be like, life's over. I'm just gonna not go to the gym and just be a bum for the next couple months until this heals, like, and just start like looking at it from an outwards perspective of like, there's nothing I can do. But in the moment, it was like, okay, Kade, you know what discomfort feels like. This isn't the first time you've dealt with something like this. What's out of your control, what's in your control? What's out of my control is I can't move my shoulder. What's in my control? How I react to it, how I respond. There's thousands of moving parts of my body that still work. I didn't miss a workout one day after that happened. My legs weren't happy with me because that's all I could do. Just every day it was like bike to like legs, bike, legs. Like that's all I could do. But that was what was in my control, and it helped keep my mind in the state of like, hey, even though we can't do this, there's still a lot that we can still do. And you know, having a bad attitude, being negative, isn't going to change anything. It's just going to change the quality of my life. It's going to make it worse.
Right.
And so trying to just focus on the positive, focus on the things that are good in life, really helped me during that time.
Yeah, that's huge. You had mentioned to me that you were glad that you had already done an uncomfortable challenge using your left hand all day, right?
Yeah.
And so you could brush your teeth, you could, you know, button your shirt, those kind of things because of your practice.
Yeah, I forgot that I told you that. Yeah, one of my challenges for those listening was I spent the whole day with my left hand, like brushing my teeth, eating. We were playing like basketball, writing. And at the end of that day, I was like, man, that sucked. Like, I'm so glad that I don't ever have to do that. And so, yeah, it's kind of ironic that a year later, I ended up having to only use my left hand for the last 2 months. But yeah, it's cool. Like being forced to not use my right hand, my motor skills with my left hand have gotten so much better. And it's like, it sucked, but growth happened. Like I'm now like pretty good with my, like I can do with my left hand. I can do a lot of things with my left hand. So yeah, that's funny.
The GOAT, or a lot of people would call him the GOAT. I won't weigh in on it, but Michael Jordan.
Okay.
When
I'm a LeBron guy.
You're a LeBron. Okay. Yeah.
No, but I respect it.
I'll extract the lesson. When he tore his ACL and was retired, part of the time for that, a lot of people will say that the best version of Michael Jordan we ever got was actually when he came back after the ACL tear. Something that for a lot of people his career ended. You know, it's the end of the road. And the reason why was because oftentimes his strong leg to finish would be the ACL tear, but his entire training process to recoup from that, he actually became a more ambidextrous player, meaning that he could finish and slam dunk coming down the right side of the court or the left, like just as strong.
Fascinating.
And so he was less predictable because those weak points that he usually didn't have to use, he was actually forced to go in and strengthen them.
Yeah.
And so that seems like a similar experience to you.
I love that concept.
Yeah. I gotta let you guys in on something that you wouldn't know unless I tell you. But before this interview, Kade and I were, to make it short, I'll just say we're having communication issues.
That wasn't our problem.
Yeah. Right? We were trying to figure things out to get here, and technology was being a struggle for us, and you waited around to make sure the interview happens. So
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, for
Thank
sure.
you for that, your patience and being gracious, and I'm glad because you've already shared a lot of value with us so far.
Yeah, for sure. And my car died too. Like,
Yeah,
it wasn't just like our messages weren't coming through each other, but my car wasn't working. But yeah, I'm glad we were able to make it through and endure some discomfort.
right.
together.
You're not somebody who lets challenges tell you no.
Exactly.
The next thing I'd like to ask you about that has a lot to do with kind of the space that I'm in is mental health. And I think you've already touched on it with what you shared about like how our time is just so drastically different from the time that our ancestors have lived in. What have you learned about your own mental health from doing this discomfort challenge and starting down this journey? And what are some things that you might share with our listeners about mental health?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's so much that I can go over in this area. I mean, yeah, first thing is like the mental health like crisis that we have today is just non-comparable to 50, 100 years ago, thousands of years ago. And it's just because I believe we're exposed to so much comfort. We're exposed to so many things, so many different types of things that we can be addicted to with technology, drugs, food, just so many things in life that can take away our agency. But probably one of the biggest things that I've learned with getting out of the comfort zone and how it helps you mentally is we've already gone over, we all have our weaknesses. And if you have a problem, a weakness, let's give an example of just like social anxiety. Most people, like when they have these weaknesses, these issues, their body is going to say avoid them. And that will solve the problem, right? It's like, okay, just don't go out, don't go see people, and then you won't experience that problem. But as soon as you avoid whatever it is that your weakness is, that just puts a ball and chain on your ankle, and that is just tying you down. It's holding you back. It's where I was 3 years ago. There were all these things that I was avoiding in my life, and it's like, I don't have that problem because I just don't see it. When in reality, like, it just gets bigger and bigger and just like holds me back from really achieving whatever it is that I need to do. And so sometimes the best thing to do to overcome whatever problem, whatever thing that is consuming your mind is facing it straight on. I'm sure you know about like exposure therapy, right? In fact, I'm actually curious, what would your take on exposure therapy? Do you know about exposure therapy?
I'm kind of familiar, yeah. Mainly I've heard it in the same context that you're sharing with social anxiety. I want to say this as a disclaimer, but it's not really a disclaimer, it's just my take. If anybody is having an experience where they need some kind of medication or some kind of professional counseling, then I'm not the person to say whether or not that's for you or not. But what I can make as a blanket statement for everybody is that it's good to challenge yourself. It's good to do the things to be healthy that we already know.
Yeah.
And some of those things are uncomfortable. They take, extra effort, whether it be eating healthy or challenging ourselves physically or socially too.
Yeah.
I mean, those relationships, they're just essential, and they won't automatically come to you.
Yeah.
I mean, you need more than the family that you're born into.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that is...
Yeah, no, it's great. And I'll add too, like, I'm not a specialist either. So this is just my experience, not any like medical advice or anything. But an example for me is something that is hard for me, and I think a lot of people can relate to, is caring what other people think.
Yeah.
And that's something that like I've learned a lot about myself over the years. Wearing the weird outfit to the gym. One of the things I did is I would just go lay down wherever I was. I lay down in the gym, lay down in the grocery store, like just lay down on the floor, just look up, and people walk by, look at me. I went to my roommate's like college basketball game. At halftime, I literally walked in the middle of the floor, just laid down, just for like 5 seconds, and then just got up and walked away. And it was just, it's a funny concept.
Security's coming running out.
I think everyone was like so confused that no one did anything. They're like,
oh really?
They're like, is this like part of the act? Like, what's going on? Like, I just acted confident. Like,
yeah.
I'm supposed to be here.
Carry
if I looked around, like did it, they might come out.
Sure.
But yeah, I was just confident. I just did it, and no one did anything. And I think they were just like, what just happened? But anyways, just doing all these things. It's that example of, if I didn't do those things, I would always have that fear of what people thought about me. But the more that I did those things, it's like, okay, no one really cares. And a perfect example is I love to dance. I love to dance, and I love to dance in my car. Like anytime music's on, I'm gonna be dancing. And in the past, I would pull up to a stoplight and I'd stop dancing because people were around me. It's like, oh, I'm gonna just like be this person that I'm not because someone's watching me. And then it was like, why would I change who I am for someone's invalid opinion of me? I'm never gonna see them again, whether they like me or hate me, judge me. Like I mean, I don't know how many videos you've seen of mine, but I get crazy reactions. Like some people who dance with me, some people who like I've had someone like flip me off. Like
a lot of people pull out their phone and they eat it up. And,
so it's like so many different reactions. But at the end of the day, whatever their reaction is, I'm still gonna be me.
Yeah.
Like whether they do X, Y, Z, it's not gonna change who I am. And so just the more that I've done it, I've probably made over 100 videos of me dancing in my car now. It's like, okay, like I'm okay with this. And I still like when I pull up every so often, like if I see like a cute girl that I pull up next to, I'm like, shoot. Like,
you gotta do it.
Like I just posted one the other day, and I'm not sure if you saw it. I think it was like a week ago, and it was like a girl and her mom, and I pull up and I'm like, all right, this is perfect. Like, just be yourself. Like, don't care, don't care. And I was able to do it. And so, yeah, just exposing myself to the things that make me scared is super impactful, and has helped me with my mental health.
Yeah, that's huge. Revisiting that, I can actually think of an anecdote from my own life. When I was struggling in middle school, I kind of had a bout with depression, and I'm fortunate enough that it didn't last very long. And I personally was able to overcome it without much else besides exposure therapy, I guess, or personal treatment, as far as like my own self-care. I started working out, started eating healthier, started thinking differently, thinking positively. And for some folks, medicine will be necessary and counseling will be. For me, that's what worked. One of the things that was kind of a point of contention in my life that really bothered me, and it will sound silly because it is, was every night after dinner, my parents would want me to clean up the dishes. But what I wanted to do was go back in my room, turn on my sad music, and be alone. And so as soon as I ate, I'd always run and do that. And then my parents would always come and track me down and say, come help clean up dinner, right? And so, I don't know, during that time, that was like super contentious for me and super discouraging, and I felt like I couldn't escape it. It almost felt like Groundhog Day. A few other things in my life felt the same way too, being lonely at school, stuff like that. But one night I had the epiphany, I had the idea that what if I clean up all of dinner before they can ask me to, and then I can run in my room, I can be alone, listen to music, right? And they'll have no ammunition to get me to come out. And so I did it. I cleaned up everything, and then I could run away and be alone like I wanted. And my parents didn't come and get me. And every night since then, I was probably 12, 13 years old. Every night from then until 18 years old, when I left the house, I cleaned up all of dinner. And the reason changed. Eventually, I didn't want to go be alone in my room, listen to sad music anymore. But I still wanted to keep that habit because that habit taught me proactivity. And proactivity is one of the huge keys of progress. If you feel like the challenges in your life keep on hitting you faster than you can recoup from them, you have to get ahead of them. You have to hit them back before they can hit you.
Yeah.
And so that was like kind of a small example, but I applied that same principle to other struggles I had in my life. If I'm lonely, I need to be proactive. I'm going to actually reach out to somebody else instead of waiting for them to come to me. I know that, certain things are going to lead to me feeling depressed and feeling hopeless. Well, I'm going to do something else that's going to prevent that feeling from coming. So, thank you for sharing on that, bringing that to my mind.
Thanks for sharing yours.
Yeah. So some of the people who have seen your car dancing videos, you've got to share with us, because those have traveled far and wide. You feel comfortable sharing that?
For sure.
Okay, please.
Like just talking about the origin of it.
And who was it? I feel embarrassed that I don't remember.
The artist?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'll dive into that. Actually, before I dive into that, there is something I want to mention with what you were just talking about.
Please, yeah.
With before we stray from mental health, I just had the thought to share it. First is we all have our struggles. And whatever it is that you, I, or the listener is dealing with, you're not alone. So someone knows how you're feeling, and there are people to help you. And what a lot of people don't know about me, and I'll share on this podcast, especially because like that's kind of what this podcast is for, is I had mental problems as a kid. A lot of people had like just see me and they're like, oh, this is just this confident, like great guy that doesn't have problems. Like, no, like I had my struggles. And so, like in elementary school, my teachers told my parents like, hey, he's got like ADD, OCD, anxiety, like just they're like, you really need to get him like help.
Yeah.
And what was interesting, and I'm not saying this is like the solution for everyone, because like you said, everyone's different, but my parents went about it in a unique way where they didn't tell me that I had these problems. And it was interesting because growing up, I never knew that I was different in that aspect. And I feel like if they would have said, hey, you have this, it would have been in my mind, this is who I am. I'm different. I can't change. But because like I never knew that I was different, I kind of, like you, just figured out how to deal with it. I figured out how to overcome it to where I don't really think it's a problem that I deal with today. Like obviously I still experience anxiety, everyone does.
Yeah. But you're also this cool, confident guy who's got it together. They both are true, you know?
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so what I would like, my main point with that is whatever issue you have in any area of life, physical, mental, emotional, financial, like all of these different problems, you can change. You can. The thought of this is who I am, I was born this way, this is in my DNA, I can't change, that is, it goes against what I was talking about earlier, where it's like you're taking what's in your control and just getting rid of it. You're focusing on the things that are out of your control. There's so much that's still in your control, and I'm a big believer in God, and I think He put us here with weaknesses for a reason. And you know, if we humble ourselves and go to Him, He'll make weak things become strong, right? And so whatever it is that we're dealing with, I'm just a big believer that we can overcome it. We can do it. So that's what I wanted to add to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's worth sharing. Progress is possible. That's the thesis. That's my tombstone. Like that's what it is.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I mean, I have my weaknesses, and that's what I've been doing for the last little bit, is trying to overcome them. Yeah. So going to the car dancing, the last day of my 30-day challenge was. What's funny is like when I did my 30-day challenge, there was stuff that I realized I was scared of that I didn't know until I was doing my challenge, and the dancing one was one of them. Because like I realized like during my challenge, I'm like, why do I stop dancing? Like I realized that once I was there, because I was like, why do I care? And I was like, maybe I should do that for one of my challenges, is like intentionally get people to look at me. So I did it on the last day, and people loved it. Like people are like, this is amazing, please keep doing these. And so I was like, you know what, like maybe I can, like my 30-day challenge is done, like what's next? And it's like, you know, that was kind of fun, and that could be a good challenge that I could overcome, so like let's do it. And so I created a series where I danced every day in my car to Jason Derulo until he commented. So that's who it was.
Yeah,
it was Jason Derulo, and it was awesome. Like I was posting every day. Jason Derulo's got a lot of hits, and I love dancing to him. He's one of the guys that I watched growing up on YouTube, trying to be like him. And on day, I think it was like 35, he commented and he said, just watched a bunch of your videos, big vibes, bro. And that comment was just like so cool, because like, oh my gosh, like just from getting out of my comfort zone, I just got Jason Derulo's attention. That's crazy. Yeah. And also like, I also have this new confidence of like not caring what people think. This is so cool. So then after that, I did it again with my like all-time favorite artist, which is Chris Brown. And a lot of hits, someone that I watched as a kid growing up. I literally have videos of me dancing to Chris Brown. And on day 41, I believe it was, he reposted one of my videos on his story, and that was just crazy. It was just like, holy cow, Chris Brown and his like 40 something million followers, he just posted this on his story, like a video of me dancing to his songs. And like my younger self would have been so happy to see that, because I've just always loved him. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's been a fun journey, and I've learned a lot through it. And I've got just a lot of feedback from people who are like, you're helping me, like, not care what people think. Like, I do this too, and I stop at red lights too. And I think a lot of people can relate to singing and dancing in the car and then being scared about what other people think. And so it's been fun getting that feedback. I also get a lot of hate, which is just part of it. And I've learned not to care, but yeah, it's been a fun journey. I love the car dancing.
Yeah, I've got to imagine that the hate only comes from people who wish that they could be as free as you. They wish that they could feel comfortable and confident enough to dance in the car, and
Yeah. I've got a lot that I've learned about hate. I'm actually gonna make a YouTube video here soon where I respond to hate. Like, I've got like all these screenshots on my phone of some hate, and some of them are like really messed up, like really twisted, rude. Like, it's crazy, some of the stuff. And it's actually really cool how I've got to the point where it no longer affects me. Like, at the beginning, it was like, oh my gosh, like, user 1347 said that I look like a fool and don't know how to dance. Like, maybe I should just stop. But then at the end of the day, what I've come to learn is you will never get hate from someone who, one, is doing better than you, and two, that is content with their life. Like, the reason why people hate is because they feel gratification in bringing someone down, which really shows the character of where they're at in life. And so whenever I see hate, I truly feel bad. Like, the meaner it is, the more I feel bad, because it's like, what is happening in your life that would push you to say something so rude and harmful? And so I truly feel like empathy for the haters, and it doesn't get to me. Like, I know who I am, I know what I stand for, I know who I'm becoming, I know my purpose and drive. Like, I don't care what this person's gonna say. So it's not just caring what people think around me, but it's also not caring what people think online. And so, yeah, the hate, I've actually come to love it because it produces more engagement and allows the video to go viral. In fact, I used to have my roommate comment hate on all my videos, because when you comment hate, then you'd get people who would like comment on his hate and be like, you don't know what you're talking about, and you get this like battle war, which is great for social media, great for engagement, pushing it. And so, yeah, now it's just like, bring on the hate, whatever. Like, I know who I am.
Yeah, I think that Kade is a walking, living example of the truism that the life that you want is on the other side of your fears.
100%.
On the other side of that discomfort. Let's switch gears just a little bit and talk career, maybe.
Okay.
You're somebody who's definitely got your head on your shoulders, financial wise, and planning and smart with money and those kind of things. I'm curious for you, how does this idea of discomfort come into your career life and kind of choosing a career path that might be different from the norm?
Yeah, I love this question. What I would first say is, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so, overcoming my fears, doing the things I don't want to do, helps me a lot in my world, because I'm a business owner, and with running business, there's a lot of things that I don't want to do, a lot of things I don't want to do that no one's telling me to do, and so if I live a life of only doing things that I want to do, I'll never see success. No successful person will ever get to where they want by only doing the things that they want to do. You have to get comfortable doing the things that you don't want to do. So how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so, like, the more uncomfortable I get in whatever area it is, like, let's just take physical. If I can be disciplined and go work out every day, like, not short myself at the gym and make sure I get that last rep in. Like, when I'm like running and I'm like tired, like not stopping, like pushing myself and doing things I don't want to do. I'm developing resilience and discipline. Discipline is being able to do things that you don't want to do. Motivation, it comes and goes, but discipline can stay with you forever. Days I feel sick, days that I don't want to go, like, those are the days that really benefit me to go, because it trains the mind to do things when I don't want to do them. If I can do that in this one aspect, it carries over into all aspects of life. So we're talking about work. If I can do this, all of a sudden with work, I have a problem come up with my business and I have to pull an all-nighter, and it's like, all right, let's go, like let's do it, you know. But if you know I'm like, I don't really feel like it, it's like no one's telling me to do it. I can skip out if I want. You know, I'm growing, and if I get content with my growth, and it's like, yeah, this is good, I can stop here. Then you know it's gonna keep me from being my full self. So yeah, just developing discipline and resilience in one aspect carries over into all. Was that even your question?
Oh yeah, no, that was right on. I think, and just adding on to that, I think a lot of people, especially today, are enamored with the phrase of like, be your own boss.
Yeah.
And I think we should. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
The entrepreneurship is way more accessible now than ever. We all have the tools to learn about it and do it. But the other side of that is you have to be your own boss.
Yeah.
Which means you have to get on your own back if you know you're not making the cut. So yeah, I think there's some valuable lessons there.
And something I would add to that. Well, first, I keep going from like our age to the old age.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, our age, we've got a lot of stuff messed up.
Yeah.
But we have, like, it's crazy the potential we have. We have access to knowledge about anything for free. Mm-hmm. It's so cool, and we can learn so much. And like in the olden days, like if you weren't in royalty, you couldn't make it. Like it was just like impossible to like climb out of whatever state you were in. It was kind of like this is who you were, like good luck. Yeah. Today's age, whether it doesn't matter where you come from, you know, we all have the opportunity to be great. Mm-hmm. We all have the opportunity to be financially free, and there's so many different ways to do it. And it's not going to happen if you rely on motivation. Yeah. You have to be disciplined and do the things you don't want to do. A lot of people see what I do and they're like, oh, must be nice to, you know, be an influencer. I hate the word influencer, but like I do a lot of social media and they're like, oh, the influencers have like the easiest life. Like, oh, you have your own business. Like you're so lucky. Like you can like be your own boss and have your own schedule and work when you want. But it's like, if it was easy, everyone would do it. Like sometimes I think to myself, like it would be nice to just have like a normal job and just work from now till then, and then after like have my mind just be totally free. But like with my business, it's like it's always on my mind. It's constant. So yeah, if it was easy, everyone would do it. But you know, pros and cons. I'm so grateful for the work that I've been able to put in and the life that I do have, and I believe everyone has that opportunity. They just have to be resilient and do it. Do the things that they don't want to do. Yeah,
that's huge. I want to make sure we remember this because you really do create a lot of content that's inspiring and educational, and a lot that's fun and goofy. And so, where can people connect with you online?
Yeah. I've got a YouTube, TikTok, but I'd say my main social media is Instagram. Mm-hmm. And it's just Kade_Peterson, Kade with a K, Peterson, S-O-N. And one of the things that I want to talk about is in my bio, I actually have a wellness guide. I don't know if you've seen it. Mm-hmm. And I've just learned so much, and I just really want to teach everyone, as many people as possible, what I've learned and help other people change their life, because my life is so different compared to who I was years ago. It's so different. And so a lot of people are like, hey, how can I get out of my comfort zone? Like what's the first steps? Like what can I do to better my life physically? What can I do to better my life financially? And so I have this wellness guide where I give like the simplest, smallest tips of each aspect of life of what you can do to get out of your comfort zone and change your life. And it's like if someone actually went through the 7 tips and like they're the easiest, smallest steps, like things that you can do, if someone did it, like they would see how much their life changed just by the smallest and simplest things. Great things come to pass.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, everybody, please feel free to connect with Kade. A lot of value, great things that he'll be sharing. I'm sure you won't regret the follow. It'll bring a smile to your face and maybe encourage you to do some of those things to branch out of your comfort zone too. I just want to thank you for being here to serve. I can feel it. I think that everybody listening can feel it. And being patient enough to stick around so we can make the interview happen and put this together. You strike me as somebody who really knows who you are. And you want to help other people carve their own path to freedom too. and to wellness. So a few final questions for you. In your own words, if you could put it in a few, who is Kade Peterson? Who have you discovered that you are through this journey?
Ooh, that's a great question. It's like my mind just went to like 5.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Something that my dad instilled in me is if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And I think life is meant to be fun. And it doesn't matter what aspect of life. I keep going over like all the different aspects, but I would say I'm someone that wants to and has a desire to grow, help other people to grow, and have fun while doing it. Life is fun, and there's a lot of things that are out of our control. But when you focus on what's in your control, you'll realize there's a lot more that's in your control, and you can make life really fun.
That's awesome. What still scares you?
Ooh, and that's a great question, and I love this question because people see me and they're like, "Oh, he's fearless." No, dude, I still have so many fears. I have a list on my phone of just hundreds of ideas that I can still do to get out of my comfort zone. Like one thing that my roommate wants to do. I don't know if you've seen that trending video. There's this dad and his 2 kids eating like a fermented herring, like a fish.
Oh,
Have you seen that?
no.
Anyway, like every time, like him just opening the can, he just like starts gagging just from the smell. But he's like so determined, and he's like, I'm gonna eat this. And every time like he's just gagging the whole time. And every time it like touches his mouth, he just like immediately gags, hands up like throwing up. And my roommate's like, dude, we should do that. And it's like that's like, dude, I do not want to do that.
Earlier you said your roommate was supportive. Now I'm like questioning.
Well, what's funny is like the version of support I'm talking about is him trying to get me to do
challenging you.
Yeah. And what's funny is he has a podcast and it's actually coming out today. And on the podcast he actually brought habanero peppers.
Wow.
And he's like, hey, you're gonna eat this right now. It was the worst.
What's it called? We got to send everybody.
The Life Legacy Podcast is what it's called. So if you want to see me struggling to eat a hot pepper, I suck with spice. Like spicy McChicken from McDonald's is spicy
serious?
for me.
Wow.
Yeah, like I cannot do spice. And he thought it was gonna be like funny and good, but I think he probably wouldn't have done it if he knew the reaction, because it took me like 10 minutes to like it's like 10 minutes of the podcast is just burned. And he's like trying to ask me a question. I'm like, dude, I can't. I'm like literally just crying, and I'm like, so like there's still so many things that I can do to get uncomfortable, and that's what's fun about this journey is it's there's always something I can do to be better.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot out there.
There's still things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Final question, and just thanks again for what you've shared with us today. This is the Progress Podcast, and I want to know if you could go back in time, either maybe it's to the version of you in elementary school who was struggling with certain things your teachers noticed. Maybe it's the version of you 3 years ago before this journey kind of started. What would you want to teach them or tell them about progress?
Yeah. These are some good questions. Like my mind goes to so many different avenues. First thing that I would something I've already touched on is you can do it. Mm-hmm. You can do it. Whatever it is that you struggle with, you can overcome it and become great. God's plan is perfect, and He wouldn't have given us a try or a weakness if we couldn't overcome it. So that's the first thing, is just having that belief. I mean, for you with your example of as a kid, mm-hmm. You wanted to just go be alone. You had that belief of like, if I do something, then I'll overcome it. And so like you were able to overcome it yourself through that belief. And then what was there was something else I was gonna mention. Repeat the question one more time.
What would you tell your past self?
Okay, got it. I think this answer like surprises people when I talk about like past self and also talk about like present day. Is Well, I'll tell the story first. Do you know who Jesse Itzler is?
Yeah.
So Jesse Itzler, one of like
all day running. And,
yeah. He's just a great example of someone who is well-rounded, business, family, wellness, like everything. He's just like has a good balance of it. Someone I look up to a lot, and I actually went to a seminar by him and snuck backstage and got to meet him. Wasn't supposed to, and I don't think he was excited to meet me. In fact, I know he wasn't. Like I stopped him in the middle of something and took a picture with him, and I just said, hey, Jesse, like I'm 25 years old, so this was last year. 25 years old. What would you tell? Like, what advice would you give to me? Like, kind of the exact same question. What would you tell your 25-year-old self? And his answer really shocked me because he's got like so many amazing things in his life. He's learned so much, and he's like, dude, don't worry, don't worry about it. Like you have so much time. Like, just enjoy now. Like, just enjoy it. And it's like, this is like a billionaire.
Yeah.
Great, like physical feats, amazing family, and that's what his advice was to just enjoy it. And something that I've come to realize is we right now are in the good days. Someday we'll look back and be like, those were some good times. Like, remember that time when we were on that podcast and like we just didn't really have our lives fully figured out. Like, those were some good times. Like, we've come so far. Like, I look back to myself 3 years ago and it's like I'm different then than I was now, but those were still good times. Like, I look back to all of the years of my life and there's so many fun memories, so many great times, and one day I'm gonna look back to today and be like, man, those were good times. I want to make sure I like take advantage of it. So like, that's what I tell my younger self, is just like, take advantage of that time you have. Like, you won't get time back. Like, we won't ever get today back. So don't let it slip away. Enjoy today.
Amen. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you guys for tuning in today to another episode of the Progress Podcast.